And we're on the air. Hi, everybody. How y'all doing?
Welcome to Two and a Half Opinions. Once again, we have come back from the abyss to see you once more. I'm Yishai.
I'm Frank, the irreverent one. Now, wait a second. The Abyss? Okay. And Chris is here someplace. He's busy at the moment. So, so this week, number 8.
Number 8? What do you mean number 8?
Okay. Who's saying that?
Number 8? What do you mean number 8? There we go.
Aha. Number 8, as in Shmini.
Ah, that's what you're trying to say.
I wasn't trying to say it. I said it.
So what's the point? You said Shmini, number 8. What do you mean number 8? So
That's what I'm asking you about.
What's your question?
And if you say third base, I'll break your arm.
what's your question? As Papa just said, what's your question?
I said, so what are we? What portion is this week? And I said, number 8.
Yeah, Shmini. Oh my word. I'm lost.
What? Come on, you gotta. You need a program. You can't know the names of the horses without a program. Come on. You're muted. You're muted, Chris. Okay.
Okay, so what you're trying to say? Oh my goodness, this is such a. This Torah portion is Parshat Shemini, which comes from. It was the 8th or the 8th day, but it's the 8th that Moses summoned Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. And so we start off with, this is the 8th day. And as we go through this, we have a completely different set of offerings and sacrifices as opposed to the first 7 days. Remember, we were told to build this mobile Sinai, or a earthly version of the Garden of Eden, so that God can dwell with us. And the whole purpose of this is that God is going to dwell with us. And for 7 days, you're going to offer these sacrifices and these offerings in this order and be specific about these things. Aaron and his sons are not to leave the Mishkan during these 7 days. And now we have 7 days are complete. And where's God dwelling with us? So on the eighth day, Moses summons Aaron and his sons, and he tells them, and we're going through sacrifices again. And these sacrifices are listed out for us on what to do. And the observant student would recognize this is a little bit different than the last 7 days. And then when we get down to a certain portion, when everything's said and done and everything's completed, and Moses stands up and he offers the last sacrifice, the last offering, and he blesses the people, Ve'verekecha Adonai, and we get the Aaronic blessing in Numbers chapter 6, but he's blessing the people, and nothing happens. Somebody must have unplugged the smoke machine and all the pyrotechnics and everything else, but nothing happens.
The smoke machine's out of juice.
Yeah, and so Moses and Aaron go into the tent of meeting, and they come back out, and the Torah is strangely silent. We don't know why they went into the tent of meeting. It doesn't say, and they were commanded to go into the tent of meeting before God's presence showed up. That this isn't part of the 7-day ritual that we just went through. That this hasn't been rehearsed. This hasn't been done. But nonetheless, they come out and they both bless the people, and fire comes out and consumes the offering. And Nadav and Avihu, Aaron's 2 sons, they rush forward. They get their own fire pans instead of the fire pans that are part of the temple service or the Mishkan service. They get their own fire pans, and since they can't approach the altar because God's fire is on the altar, and that's the only place where you're supposed to get fire to put the incense on, and they get strange fire, something that's alien from the altar. It's not in the altar, and they go rushing into the Mishkan, and immediately they're consumed by the fire of God, and they're carried out. And then suddenly we get a whole explanation of what we can eat and what we cannot eat, what is clean and what is unclean, and we go through a long litany and a long list. And then at the end of it, what do we have? That's it.
It's a new set of dietary laws. Not new, maybe refreshed, but
Maybe yeah, refreshed. It's definitely explained, but we come down to the last couple verses in chapter 11, because it's a short Torah portion, 9,
yeah.
10, and 11, and it's, for I am the Lord who has brought you up from the land of Egypt to be your God. Thus you shall be holy. Why? Because I'm holy. So the purpose of everything that's happened on this 8th day is for you to be holy because I'm holy. This is the law regarding animals, birds, living creatures that move in the water, and all the creatures that creep on the ground, to distinguish between the clean and the unclean, and between the animal that may be eaten and the animal that may not be eaten. And we can come through and explain scientifically, nutritionally, and everything else as to why this is all good stuff, or we can just suffice it to say that, well, those silly Jews, they it's like the Neanderthal Jew. They just didn't know how refrigeration, so they couldn't refrigerate pork and shellfish properly, or they didn't know how to cook. They didn't. They just stupid. They didn't know better.
Wrong answer.
Yeah.
Well, to expound on the clean and unclean statement, we've got the entire Maftir. Most Maftir portions cover either a portion in the Torah portion itself, or it covers it in the prophets, or a story in the Tanakh. This one pulls straight from Numbers 19 and chooses to talk about the law of the red heifer, which is meant as a sacrifice to make people clean and unclean when defiled by a corpse. Strange positioning right then and there to add to the mix, is it not?
The Maftir.
Yeah. The Maftir for this portion is Numbers 19, 1 through 22.
Okay. I've got a different Maftir, but anyways, we'll go with that. And what do you have for the Haftorah? 2 Samuel chapter 6, right?
Ezekiel 36.
Why do I have a different Haftorah than you guys do? And we read a different Haftorah earlier as well. The Haftorah is 2 Samuel 6, where the Philistines have taken the ark, and David, they find out that they're basically under a curse. Everybody's dying, and we got a plague and things like that. And so they load up the ark and put it on a cart and with oxen, and they send it forth, and it comes up, and David finds it, and they put it on a new cart, and etc. And David's going to bring the cart up to Jerusalem and inaugurate a wonderful thing in a wonderful place. But Uzzah puts forth, because the ark is the cart teeters when it's crossing over rocks and stuff, and Uzzah puts his hand up to it, and he's consumed immediately. Now that's been the Haftorah for years. Is it? Maybe I'm mixed up here. That's always been the Haftorah.
Maybe Chabad's changing things around.
Okay.
Or maybe they found a different tack on, and by not tack as in travel on a ship.
Yeah, and I'm just going back historically, so maybe it's a little bit different. But nonetheless, the whole point of this Torah portion is this is the 8th day. What's significant of the 8th day? Why 8th day? Because that's not what we were commanded. We were commanded 7 days. Kind of like Sukkot, we're commanded 7 days, but yet on the 8th day is going to be a holy day.
Day of detention.
Yeah, and kind of like
Passover.
Yeah, kind of like Shavuot. Shavuot, you're going to count 7 days and 7 sets of 7 days. But on that 8th day, the 50th day, there's going to be Shavuot. And so there's something strange going on here with the 8th day. And then we have this weird pause of Aaron and Moshe going into the Mishkan. And then we have the death of Nadav and Avihu. And then going into kosher laws. So what are we going to talk about today? I just went through the whole Torah portion. So
Yes, you did.
But I have a question for you. Chris, what is offered as a sin sacrifice?
In this Torah portion or period, or
Normally.
are you talking economically, ecumenically, philosophically, religious?
What animal was offered as a sin sacrifice?
It's a bull. Well, actually, it's a calf. It's the calf of a bull, and
But
there is a teaching on that too, because everything that is the sacrifices that are brought on this eighth day, they're the same ones in the same order that's brought on Yom Kippur. And
true.
when we get here in Leviticus chapter 16, we're going to see that after the death of Aaron's two sons, we get an instruction about Yom Kippur.
Right.
And we go through these offerings. But the first is Aaron will not enter into the Kodesh Kodeshim, the Holy of Holies, anytime he wants to. He's going to enter into it one day a year, and it's going to be very specific, and these are the rules and ways that you're going to enter into the Kodesh Kodeshim, which should tie back to this Torah portion of, why did Nadav and Avihu die? They were trying to enter into, and they didn't enter into the correct way. There is a correct way, but we only find out about that correct way either with the instruction of the eighth day or after the death. We'll get more detailed instruction of how you enter into, but you just don't do it your way, you do it my way.
That's what the Father says, yes. No, but what I'm asking is, normally throughout any year where they offered sin offerings, you said last week that it was always a female lamb, correct?
No, my point was it was never a male lamb that's offered for sin.
True, but here it says a male goat.
Yeah, it's not a male lamb. It's either going to be a bull, a calf, a ram, a female goat, or a female lamb, but it's never a male lamb. That was my only point with that. So
Right. But what I wanted to focus on was the fact that, okay, you know about goat herding and such from when you were over in Afghanistan. You had a lot of experience just being around the people.
you
Just,
tell me
no, I mean, just being around the people.
you're telling me I herded goats while I was in Afghanistan?
No.
Wow, I never.
That's
thought
not
you
what I
could call
mean.
Afghanis
No.
that.
I meant you had interaction with the locals and you watched, the how they practiced herdsmanship is what I'm saying. This specifically in 9:3 says, "And to the children of Israel shall speak, saying, Take a he goat as a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both in their first year, and both unblemished as burnt offering." So this is the only time, aside from Yom Kippur, I believe, where a male goat is used as a sin offering. Okay. People want to say Yeshua was the lamb. Well, your experience and for what I know about herding animals, the alpha female or the ewe, she's in charge of the herd. And if there are goats, then the alpha goat is in charge of the safety of the herd. Because that's the way they did it. They, people, not people, sorry. The sheep would trundle across and the lead female would say yes or no, and they'd go, and the lead goat would be the protector.
Yeah, and oddly enough, we see that in a lot of herd animals. I mean, whether it be horses, horses always have the brood mare or the lead mare, and it's the lead mare that does lead, and it's the stallion that is trailing or off on the sides and etc. And occasionally he'll come in and redirect the horses. It's the same thing with sheep and what I experienced in the Middle East, whether it be Afghanistan. I've actually seen it here in New Mexico and other places where there are actual sheep herders. They're either going to have a dog, but generally they're going to have a couple of goats in there with the sheep, and the goat will take the role of protector and leadership, and that male goat is the one that will come up and he'll butt whoever is the lead sheep or the lead goat, which is always a female. He'll butt her to direct her and guide her, and then fall back. Occasionally he'll come forward when there's an area of danger. And I saw this specifically, and Frank, maybe this is what you're talking about, because I've mentioned this a few times, is we're out in the middle of nowhere in Afghanistan, and there's only one road, and we're traveling down this road, and I'm looking out at the same countryside over and over. Anybody that's ever been in a desert environment, whether it be New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, West Texas, places like this where it's flat,
Saudi Arabia.
it's flat and you can see forever. There might be mountains, there might be hills here and there, but after a while you're just droning almost as you're looking at the side, and all of a sudden, I mean, it's like it popped up out of nowhere. Here's this sheep herder and a big group of sheep, and as I see that that group, that herd of sheep coming up towards the road, I noticed 2 or 3 goats, and one goat came running up, and he butted a couple of sheep, and he butted one of the goats, and I could see it had horns, and once it gets up to the road, I could see that it was a male goat, and he stomped his foot, and everybody stopped. He literally, it was like a kid crossing a street. He looked both ways, look left, look right, look left again, proceed with caution type of thing. And he stomped his foot, and another goat, which was a female, walks across, and all the sheep follow her across. He stood there, and then he circled back around behind the herd, all the way around both sides, came back around again, and he was the last one to cross the road. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have misunderstood the whole analogy of goats my entire life. That goat is one that is letter of the law type of thing. He's going to protect you, and if you're going to step out of line, he's going to butt you, he's going to step on you, he's going to hurt you. He he's got pointy toes. He's going to hurt you.
But it's already love.
Yeah, he's got horns on his head. He's going to hurt you, but he's there to protect you. He's there to keep you in line. And I found that very odd and very strange that it was a male goat that was actually as the Irish would use a sheepdog, or the Australians would use sheepdog. Here in the Middle East, they're using male goats as that sheepdog that keep the sheep herded together and keep them safe and watch over them and keep things moving along. I thought that was very odd and very strange. And so that's what drove me, Frank, years ago of digging into the Torah again and realizing that there's no such thing as a male lamb for a sin offering. Here we have the sin offering, and I'll let you continue on with it. But this is the 8th day sin offering. This is a little bit different because we're going to go with the calf, and there's a different story and a different backside to.
Right. But that's Aaron and the calf, okay, and that is a different story, or a different set of circumstances. But I just wanted to point out that the he goat in this situation is the sin offering. It is the leader of the herd. Therefore, it's responsible for the flock. Think he goat for Yeshua and not lamb. That's all I'm saying. So, but aside from that.
Yeah, and I think all we really want to do is introduce to our closed off and separated, very very hygienic Western mindset and such, that a real sheep herder, someone living with cattle, someone living with horses, someone actually experiencing these things, every once in a while, what we've been taught about the New Testament doesn't ring true. But if you go back and look at the words and you understand the livestock and the agrarian society, it brings about a different picture to you. Right. Goats are not bad, never have been bad.
Right.
Something about Western society bringing out goats is a bad thing. So we separate the sheep and the goats. What does that mean? Separating the sheep and goats. Does that mean goats are bad? Well, then why are goats used as sin offering, but male lambs are not? And it's just it's food for thought. And we introduced this just so you would go back and research it on your own.
Right, exactly. So, any idea what Aliyah we're going to read? The first one, maybe, or some other one?
Yeah, we'll just do the first and move on.
All righty then.
Much we're trying to discuss very quickly.
Okay, well, so let me know when you are ready.
Always ready.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim v'tan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'Torah. Melech Ne'eman.
And Leviticus chapter 9, verse 1 through 16, read from Chabad.org's English translation. And it was on the 8th day that Moses summoned Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. And he said to Aaron, take for yourself a bull calf as a sin offering, and a ram as a burnt offering, both unblemished, and bring them near before the Lord. And to the children of Israel you shall speak, saying, take a he-goat as a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both in their first year and unblemished, as a burnt offering, and an ox and a ram as peace offerings to slaughter before the Lord, and a meal offering mixed with oil, for today the Lord is appearing to you. And they took what Moses had commanded to the front of the tent of meeting, and the entire community approached and stood before the Lord. And Moses said, this is the thing the Lord has commanded to do, and the glory of the Lord will appear to you. And Moses said to Aaron, approach the altar and perform your sin offering and your burnt offering, atoning for yourself and for the people, and perform the people's sacrifice, atoning for them as the Lord has commanded. So Aaron approached the altar and slaughtered his sin offering calf, and Aaron's sons brought forward the blood to him, and he dipped his finger into the blood, placing some on the horns of the altar, and he poured the blood at the base of the altar. And the fat, the kidneys, and the diaphragm with the liver from the sin offering he caused to go up in smoke on the altar, as the Lord had commanded Moses. And he burned the flesh and the hide in fire outside the camp. And he slaughtered the burnt offering, and Aaron's sons presented the blood to him, and he dashed it on the altar and around. And they presented the burnt offering to him in its prescribed pieces, along with the head, and he caused them to go up in smoke on the altar. And he washed the innards and the legs, and he caused them to go up in smoke on the altar, along with the burnt offering. And he brought forward the people's sacrifice. He took the people's sin offering goat, slaughtered it, and made it a sin offering like the first one. And he brought forward the burnt offering and prepared it according to the law.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah imet b'kayei olam nota b'tokenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'Torah. Melech Ne'eman. So,
Yeah, so I want to offer up something right up at the front here. There is an idea that has run rampant through a lot of areas, and that is that Nadab and Abihu did not get coals from the altar to bring forth their strange fire, and I want to. I'm trying to premise this and preface it correctly. People are thinking that this was a cold altar. In other words, there's no fire on this altar. Aaron and his sons, they're presenting all these sacrifices and they're putting them on the altar, and then God comes down and he consumes them, kind of like Elijah with the prophets of Baal, is that Elijah has this cold flesh up there and he's shooing away the flies and the buzzards, and then all of a sudden the fire comes out, and that's not necessarily true here. We got to remember, we've just gone through 7 days of offering these sacrifices, and we're being very careful in keeping the commandment, and that is the fire never goes out on the altar. So there is a fire on the altar, and as we're reading this, it says that Aaron caused it to go up as smoke on the altar. So these sacrifices are being burned on the altar. This is not a cold altar. There's a fire on this altar. Where we come into the issue is that at the completion of everything, when it's all said and done, then a fire comes from God and consumes everything. There's a hidden understanding within that. But the point still lies is that don't think for a moment there was no fire already on this altar. God did consume it. But it's that same fire that consumed these offerings and these sacrifices that consumed Nadav and Avihu. So let's be very, very careful before we jump to too many conclusions from our Western understanding of things, our Greek mindset. That this is a little bit different. There's some strange things going on here. So with that, Frank, Jesse, you guys had a couple of things. I just want to offer up of what, as we go through, all the sacrifices are offered. And then let's scroll down, and I'm going to present this real quick, and then we can go into what you guys have. And they placed the fats on top of the breasts, and he caused the fats to go up in smoke on the altar, verse 20. And Aaron had already waved, and this is a past tense. Someone once told my wife or me or somebody in our family that there's no such thing as past tense in Hebrew, and we had to point it out to them that, oh, well, I'm mistaken. But there is a past tense. Aaron has already done these things. And now verse 22. Now we're up to, here's the heat of the moment. We're present tense now. And Aaron lifted up his hands towards the people. And today a Cohen will do the Spock thing, and he raises his hands over the people and he says, Yevarechecha Adonai, and we get that in Numbers chapter 6 of what the Aaronic blessing is. And there's a couple of rabbis out there. My favorite is Raphael Samson Hirsch, who has a whole series of commentaries. He and a few other rabbis, they descend from Rashi on this one. They said there's a pregnant pause in the Torah scroll. There's a pregnant pause right here. Aaron lifted up his hands towards the people and he blessed them, period. And there's a pause. And that even in the canting of this, the tone changes after this. And it's almost monotone. And you can hear the descending. He then descended from preparing the sin offering and the burnt offering and the peace offering. We have an elevation. He lifted up his hands and he blessed the people. And then he descended from preparing the sin offering and the burnt offering and the peace offering. And the question is asked, why the pause? How come nothing happened? And then the next verse, and Moses and Aaron go into the tent of meeting, and they come out, and they bless the people, and the glory of the Lord appears, and we're going back up in our canting with a higher note, and we're coming up to a crescendo. What's this pause? Why did they stop? And so the teaching of the I don't want to say Alter Rebbe, but the dissenting opinion is that God is using this moment to teach everyone that even though you went by the prescribed methods, don't you dare for one moment, 1 second, think that you can present these things in these orders, etc., etc. You can go A, B, C, D, A1, A2. It says over here, do it this way. Roger that. Check the block. Over here, check this block. We checked all the blocks. Now God appears. In other words, do not treat God mechanically. Don't treat him like a slot machine where you can put your quarter in. Well, I paid my tithes, God. Now you must bless me. Yay! No. Don't treat God mechanically in order to get what you want.
There is no formula
Exactly.
for relating to God.
Just because there's a prescribed order of things, the prescribed order of things does not bring about the result. And that's what's crucial here. That's what's critical here. Because everything that follows with Nadav and Avihu are going to build upon this pregnant pause of, yes, you did it technically the correct way. And now you're wondering why your VCR doesn't work. It's because you treated me like a VCR. You treated me like a rote rule of instructions. And Paul kind of touches on this when he says, don't pray rote prayers in vain. And the church, the Christian church comes back, the Catholic Church comes back and says, see those silly Jews, they pray the same prayer over every day, and they're bowing and they're doing the crazy stuff, and they don't get it. They don't have the Spirit. And I've heard the same thing in the charismatic churches. It's rote prayers, and that's why we don't do things Jewish way. No, you're missing the point. They're not doing the same prayers every day in order to get something.
They're not doing it in vain.
They're not doing it in vain. Exactly. They're not checking the block. Okay, I washed my hands and I said a prayer, and I did this and I said a prayer, and I said these prayers in this order. Now God bless me. Give me a new color TV and a Mercedes Benz. No. It's not a mechanical method, and don't you dare approach God in a mechanical way. And that's why this pause in the most extreme moment, an extreme way, when everything has set up. We've been extremely careful. We've been going over this for 7 days. We're extremely careful. And now I have blessed the people just as you said. Yevarecha Adonai. And nothing. Could you imagine being Aaron? The embarrassment. We've built it up. We've got this great, we've had all the songs, and we've done all this, and we've done all that, and everybody's waiting, and now, God, you're on stage.
Because unfortunately, seeing is believing.
God? Hello, God. God, you're on. Somebody cue God. Get God up. God, we've done it. No. No, and that was the point here, is that don't approach me mechanically. Don't think, because I have the Holy Spirit. I have the blood of this. I have the blood of that. I have done this and I've done that. I've given my tithes. You know what, God? I gave the guy on the street some money, and he had a sign and everything. So now bless me. You're missing the point. And so we have the pause. Don't approach me mechanically. It has to be your whole body, your whole heart, your whole soul, your mind, and everything about you. Now we can meet together.
It's it's more akin to a child who has been instructed, do this, and then do that, and then you can come talk to me. Do this, do that, then you could come see me. And it's as if we should approach God in a childlike manner because, oh, God wants me to do this. Okay, I'll do that for him. And God wants me to do that. Okay, I'll do that. Oh, I'm done, God. What's next? It's not in anticipation of any kind of a gift. Okay, it's just to, as a child, please your father. That's all. It's not. It's not the one-arm bandit. God, here's my tithe, pay me back. That's like you said, Chris. That's not it. It has to do with wanting to please God for no reason, for no profit, just to do it. So I don't know how else to put it.
But also but this portion also teaches us to not be overly zealous as well.
Oh.
It may teach us to not do the logic and constantly follow just the logic, but it also teaches us to not constantly follow just the emotional as well. Don't get your emotional high on religion.
Yeah, and
keep your feet on the ground.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Jesse. Is don't get your emotional high off of religion, because where this really hits home with me is there's all kinds of teachings and rules and regulations on someone, the proselyte, the one that wants to convert to Judaism. And in America, Western Judaism, America and Europe, Western Europe. They've got a set of rules and things on how to bring a proselyte in. Deny them, deny them, deny them. Okay, now, and they come forward. But the older writings about a proselyte wanting to convert to Judaism, which everyone needs to understand, Judaism does not ever say anywhere, nothing in the Torah, nothing in Judaism, nothing in the history of Judaism says you need to convert and be a Jew in order to be saved. That thought, that mindset is doesn't even exist in Judaism. Judaism is not looking at salvation like Islam and Christianity is. They don't view it the same way. There's the approach, everything about it is completely foreign and alien to Torah and Judaism, the Christian and Islamic approach to, quote, salvation. So it's not there. There's no such idea that you have to be a Jew in order to have a relationship with God or to be, quote, saved. So within the teachings of the proselyte is one of them that comes across and says, all right, so why do you want to be a Jew? And if the prospective proselyte answers, because it makes perfect sense, it's logical, I understand it now, I see the wisdom, I understand the Torah, it's totally logical, and the Torah is correct, and therefore I want to be a Jew, then you're supposed to reject that one. On the other hand, someone that comes across and says, well, I'm totally in love with God, and I just feel that this is the right way, and I had a revelation, or the Holy Spirit talked to me, or whatever, and it's complete emotion, you're supposed to reject that one. But if they understand the logic, the wisdom, and the approach, and they agree that Torah is correct, and they have the emotional draw, and they recognize God, and they feel the Spirit drawing them. When they have the combination of logic and emotion, that's the one that you embrace. That now becomes as though they were natural born. And it's an interesting teaching on that very thing in the Talmud and other places, is that it has to be a combination of spirit and flesh, logic and emotion. There is a beautiful tie within that about bringing in the convert or the proselyte. Jesse, does that feed into what you're getting to?
That does, but it's not where I was going with it. In my mind, I was going to go in a different direction, but only after everyone discussed everything.
So go.
So essentially what I was doing was adding fuel to the fire behind you guys on the subject of, wait a minute, just so that people understand, logic and emotion must be intertwined, must be married to make this work. Because as we deal with Nadav and Avihu later on, we can easily see the understanding that I have been led under would be this. Nadav and Avihu was among the elders that went up on Mount Sinai. They were among the elders on Mount Sinai, and they were granted at least a portion of God's presence. And then they were denied the rest because Moses went up the rest of the way.
But yeah, and it's not so much they were denied as much as it wasn't their position, it wasn't their place, it wasn't their calling, it wasn't the proper way. Yeah, and what you're talking about is back in Genesis 24, right? 24,
Exodus.
20, Exodus. I'm sorry, not Genesis. Exodus 24, and we see that called by name is Moses, Aaron, Nadav, Avihu, and 70 elders to come up the mountain. Now this is after the 10 Commandments, and we said, we can't hear anymore, Moshe. You go up and you get the rest of it, because we're going to die. And Moshe says, guys, don't be afraid. Come near. Come into the cloud. Come into the cloud. No, we're going to die. It's too scary. We're too emotionally tied to everything. And so, Moshe, you go forward. And God says, don't worry about it, Moshe. I got this one. I like these guys. They're on the right path. Moshe, you, Aaron, Nadav, Avihu, and the 70 elders, you guys come up, and Nadav, Avihu, and Aaron and the 70 elders, you stay right here. Moshe, you come up. How long were they up there, Jesse, before they saw God and sat down to eat and drink? Frank, Jesse?
The length of time that I've heard usually is implied more towards the time frame between when they sat and ate and drank and when Moses finally went into the cloud, which was 7 days.
7 days. They're up on the mountain 7 days. And how long were they practicing for the tabernacle? 7 days. And what did Nadav, Avihu, and the 70 elders see? They saw God.
They saw a form of God.
And what did they do?
They sat and ate and drank.
And what were they eating? They brought a sack lunch with them?
They brought plenty of.
I brought my Scooby-Doo lunch pail with me, and
well, maybe one of them brought their Scooby-Doo lunch pail. The rest actually brought sacrifices. But no.
So they brought the sacrifice. What sacrifice was there that was performed before they went up? The shlamim, which introduced the covenant. Moses, we went through this last couple of weeks. Moses, he brings the young gentleman, the youth, and said, "Bring forth the shlamim, the peace offering." There's very few times. I think there's 2 to 4 times in all of Torah where we even talk about the shlamim, the peace offering, and this is one of them. And I brought it forth last week of what was the sacrifice that initiated this covenant between God and Israel. It wasn't a sin sacrifice. There was no sacrifice for sin to initiate this covenant. It was the peace offering, which is free will. If you want to do it this way, it's the peace offering. And we see in last week and in this week the instructions that who is supposed to eat the peace offering. And so Nadav, Avihu, and the 70 elders, they're up there. They see God. They see the cloud. They see the fire. And they sit down and they eat the peace offering. Just as Moshe commands in last week's Torah portion and this Torah portion. They understood. They get the commandment. I have to eat this. I'm a priest. I have to eat this. And they're drinking the drink offering. And they're being a part of this. But Moshe is the only one that gets to enter into the cloud where the fire is. I can't go up into that. Oh, could you imagine the anxiety, the emotion, the thoughts, the feelings that's going through these two individuals, Nadav and Avihu, who are called by name to go up here with everybody else.
To add more to that, they've been denied. In their eyes, I keep saying denied because it's in their eyes they are denied.
They're restricted from entering into where Moshe goes, which is into the cloud where the fire is. And I just wanted to stress that point. So go ahead, Jesse.
And they are restricted from entering into the tabernacle whenever Moses and Aaron went in as well. So how do you think they're probably feeling at this juncture in time? It's that whole mental image of, wait a minute, we've been here before. We've been here before. And where was that? That was on the mountain. We went up. We stayed for 7 days. We gave the sacrifices. We ate some of the sacrifices. And Moses and Aaron, just like Moses on Mount Sinai, goes up without us. They are probably dealing with the biggest form of deja vu they've ever encountered, and it's so emotionally strong because they want to be with God, just like how Moses gets to be with God, that they act.
So you're saying
initiative.
So you're saying that they were so emotionally wrapped up in the situation that they acted without really thinking, because they were not the high priest. They were just the priests. So is that what you're saying? So
I would say that because I'm about to insult some people by accident. They walked boldly before God with their incense.
yeah.
Okay, and
Yep.
he's somewhat quoting Hebrews where it says, "Now therefore we can approach boldly before the throne," and yeah, he has heard this. I've heard this. I think a lot of us heard this from the church. Is now because of Jesus we can come boldly into the presence of God. Well, no, you can't do it your way. No, no. And Nadav and Abihu were caught up in the emotion. I mean, the music was playing and the choir was singing and it was beautiful, and I was just overwhelmed in the spirit and caught up into it, and I rushed forward. Oops, you just can't come anytime you want to, emotionally driven or not. And what ties this is the very the commandment that we get following this incident of Nadav and Abihu is, God tells Moses, "Now Moses, go tell the Kohen that they can't drink wine when they're in their service." And so the idea is, oh, that's what it was. That's what Nadav and Abihu's sin was. They were drunk, or they were inebriated, or they were drinking wine while they did this, and then that's why God consumed them. No, 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 no. Oh, nay, nay, says the rabbis. The rabbis.
Nay, 90.
Yeah, well, actually, the rabbis are split on this because there is a house that does say that that's part of it, but the teaching behind it is that the wine or alcohol breaks down our inhibitions and therefore
Right.
allows us to do things that we would not normally do if we were driven by logic. We would say no, but the wine or alcohol breaks that inhibition and allows us to cross over into things that we would not normally do. And the point here is just as wine or alcohol does that for you, don't be so emotionally driven that you cross a line. Now, did they sin? Did they purposefully cross or do something that they were commanded not to do? Did God say, "Do not do this"? Is that how this is written in this Torah portion? Did God specifically say, "Do not bring your own fire pan. Do not bring fire from any place else. Do not do it this way"? Or is our Torah portion is they brought something that was not positively commanded of them. God said do it this way. They did it a little bit different. It's not that
They
God
added
said,
to it.
yeah, it's not that God said don't do it this way. God said do it this way, and you did it just a little bit different.
We've got to be careful whenever I made the statement add to them, because God has given permission to add or take away from the laws that are given. But the implication here is there's usually a purpose behind something being added to or taken away from Torah by by ruling.
Now be careful.
You know where I'm trying to go with this.
Yeah, God has given man the ability to ascribe how to perform certain things. The Torah says to do it. Do this. In other words, if I were to give you instructions on boiling an egg, and I say boil the egg in this manner, but I don't tell you how long to boil the egg, and you come up and you now say an egg must be boiled between 3 and 4 minutes. God has allowed that for you. He didn't say put it in the microwave. He's not giving you that allowance. He's just saying boil the egg, and you come up and you say the egg needs to be boiled for 3 to 4 minutes. God allows that. We see this even in the New Testament with Jesus when two people are have a disagreement, then they're to bring it to the congregation and etc. And as we go through this argument and this discussion, these two individuals are in disagreement as to how to do Torah, not what is Torah, how to do Torah. And the end result is where two or more are gathered, I am in their presence. It's in that context and that setting of these two individuals are discussing and debating and are in disagreement on how to do Torah, not whether Torah is right or wrong, not what is sin, how to do something appropriately in their disagreement, and they bring it before the elders, and everybody comes to an agreement. And so in this case, Jesus is in agreement with Torah, where Torah says the judges will decide the things that are not specifically written here, and when Moshe is absent, then the judges decide how to do Torah on these areas where it's obscure. It's a little bit off. And so we don't get it. The Torah doesn't tell me exactly how to do it this way. So that's kind of the point of that. I'm digressing. I'm getting us off track. So
Well,
Well,
that's all right.
I did have a question, and that is, so I just want to refresh it for a second. So just like getting drunk or inebriated, if we become too spiritually high-minded, we can transgress God's words.
I want to be careful here because I want to make sure I'm understanding. You're going on the logical side and versus the emotional side. In other words, I've overthought this, as opposed to I'm just so caught up in the moment and in the spirit that I transgress. Now are you
Well,
going over the other side?
from what I'm understanding about the question is, it's the question of the subject of being inebriated is in the same setting as being emotionally driven, because you are dumbing down your logic by being inebriated.
Oh well,
I
yeah,
guess that's the implication.
yeah, and that's the teaching on why the very next commandment after the death of Nadav and Avihu in our Torah portion and is don't drink wine when you're in the service. Is don't break down that barrier to where you will do something you normally would not. And the the rare teaching, or the smaller teaching from Rabbi Hirsch, from Foreman, and a few others, is that Nadav and Avihu were so emotionally caught up in this event. Is, like you said, Jesse, we've been here before. We saw this. We were there. We were on the actual mountain, not the mobile mountain we built, on the real mountain right up there. We were up there. We were there. We sat. We ate the shlamim. We were part of it. And there was the cloud, and there was the fire, and Moshe walked into it. And I want to be a part of that. I want to be in that. I'm caught up and I'm drawn towards it. I've got to be there. Here we are. Now the purpose, the very purpose of us building this Mishkan is so that God will dwell with us. He has now shown his presence. God said, after you do this, then I will reveal myself to the nation. He's here. He's consumed the fire, and we're in it. And they immediately turn to the Mishkan. Remember, they're actually in the court where the altar is, and fire comes out from the Mishkan. We sometimes we don't vision how things are set up. Where did they go that they were consumed by this fire? Where did the fire come from? Did it come from straight out of heaven, straight down into the altar to consume it? It's possible. It's possible. But where does God say he will meet with us? In the Mishkan. Not in the holy area. In the most holy area. In my inner chambers, in my bedroom. Between the wings. There I will talk with you. The animal soul is burned up on my altar. And you notice the wording of a lot of these sacrifices? This is the most holy. It says, Kadosh Kadoshim. This is the holy of holies. So you're going to eat it in a clean place. You're going to treat it this way. Certain sacrifices are the holy of the holies. That holy of the holies connects us with the holy of the holies. And the purpose of the altar is so that we can commune face to face with the Most High in the Holy of the Holies. And what is Nadav and Abihu doing? We're part of this. We're wrapped up into this. They're consumed. They truly are totally consumed, but emotionally driven. I can't stand it any longer. I've got to rush into it. And they rush into the Holy of Holies. And that's why the end result is they're killed. But they're killed with the fire that consumed the sacrifices on the altar. They're consumed by the fire that was on the mountain. They're consumed by the fire that wrote the Ten Commandments. They're consumed by this holy fire, and there's no evidence of death about them. There's no physical evidence, no trauma, no piercing, no burning. Even their clothes don't smell of smoke.
It's almost like a death of natural causes.
It's a death of natural causes. And so the rabbis say, this is the kiss of God. They didn't approach the right way. And because of the holiness of what he is, they were consumed. But because of the desires of their heart to be there, they're consumed wholly from the inside.
God said, you want to be with me? Fine.
Be with me. But you can no longer exist in this plane. You can no longer exist separate from me. And that's the odd one. God wants us to be individuals. But when we cannot be individuals, we will be consumed. Ecclesiastes, I'm forgetting exactly where. Ecclesiastes says, the body returns to the dust from which it came, and the spirit returns to God from which it originated. I think some of the audience understands that in Judaism, the concept of hell, the Christian hell, the Greek hell, that's foreign to Judaism. It's foreign to Torah. Torah doesn't teach hell. The whole idea of hell is mashugana. It makes no sense to Judaism because you can't be anywhere where God is not.
True. I have an idea though, Area 51 stuff, but I'll wait.
but the idea is someone that is totally unredeemable by being washed by the water or cleansed by the fire. That soul is so reprehensible, it must be totally consumed. But Ecclesiastes says the spirit must return to God from which it came. That individual loses an individual identity and is totally consumed as though it never existed. It's obliterated. Wiped out of the book of life. It's obliterated, but it returns to God. And so Nadav and Abihu are like on the other side of that extreme. They wanted to be a part of it so much that their individuality now is consumed because they got too close in an improper manner. Not because they sinned, but because they didn't approach properly. And therefore they've lost their identity and are consumed and brought up into it. So I'm once again, I keep telling Frank and Jesse, you guys let me talk, and I'm gonna take up the entire time. There's more here. Frank, there was something you wanted to get to, and I don't know, have we gotten that far into the Torah portion?
Well, actually, I said it in the beginning. It's the one about the offering of the goat as a sin offering. And that just kind of goes along with, okay, wait a second. If we believe Yeshua is an offering, I know there's a lot of other stuff behind it, but think of it as a goat, because the goat is the leader of the herd. It keeps the herd safe. Goats are not bad. My original opinion is that when Yeshua says, I separate the sheep from the goats, well, that's a Greek term, because the term for both of them together is the say. So if he says I separate the say from the say, he's saying, in my opinion, Frank's opinion, okay, he's saying I separate my herd, my flock, from the world's flock. That's what he's saying, because goats are never wrong as an offering. So the Area 51 thing I wanted to mention was, what if the two witnesses are Nadav and Abihu? I'm just going to put that out there.
You're going. You definitely are going to Area 51, and just because I don't know how to even approach that one. But I want to go back to separating the sheep from the goats. It's Matthew 25. See, I only know chapters. It's like I remember back when I was in the Baptist college and others that I had a professor that I really loved because I felt like he was talking to me. I mean, he was like I cannot remember verses of chapters, and he was concerned with, as long as you know where to get to your friend's house. How to get to your friend's house. I don't care if you have his exact street address, but you better know at least what street he's on. And what he was getting to is know the chapters, know what's involved in each chapter or section of chapters. Whether you have the exact verse or not, I'm not so concerned, just know where. So forgive me whenever I say it's in chapter 25 of Matthew where Jesus is talking about the separation of sheep and goats. But he says something along the lines that when the Son of Man comes in his glory and the angels are there and they're going to sit at his throne, etc., and the nations come before the Messiah, that at that time he will separate the sheep from the goats. Keep in mind the proper setting of this from a Hebraic or a Torah-based individual is in Matthew 25. The nations come before him, and he separates the sheep from the goats. A shepherd, a true shepherd, would understand. There's leaders amongst each of these nations and tribes. And so he separates the leaders from the followers, and he deals with the leaders appropriately and the followers appropriately. Nowhere in chapter 25 is he going to send the goats to hell. So goats aren't bad. That's the point. Go ahead.
Goat bad, sheep good.
Yeah. Sean the sheep.
So our current president's not going to hell? I'm sorry. I know that is a primary hot topic with political people. But interesting. If we okay, so you're muted.
Yeah, I'm muted again. Okay, so we've dealt with the eighth day. The sacrifices are the same as Yom Kippur, and maybe we can get into that when we get to Vayikra 16 in the weeks to come, if depending on Pesach and how we deal with that. But as we continue along, we've got Nadav and Avihu, and they're consumed, and then we have Mishael and Elzaphan come and they carry away, and now we're going to go into this really weird thing. Okay, if I'm Aaron, I'm under a great deal of pressure already. You know, I'm 7 days. I've got to make sure I do it this way and not that way. Point my toe this way. Stick my tongue out this way. Say it with inflection over here, but not inflection. I mean, this is very critical because, after all, God. This isn't the president of the United States showing up. This is God. This isn't my boss or my best friend. I'm not getting ready for my wedding with my wife. This goes way beyond that. I stumbled all over my wedding vows. Pam got them straight and correct with emotion and a little tear in her eye, and I'm stumbling all over the place. But I wasn't going to die because I stumbled on my wedding vows. This is more.
Yeah, this is not Billy Graham showing up. This is not the Pope showing up.
Yeah.
This is not the Dalai Lama.
Exactly. This is so much more. And so I'm concentrating on this. I'm trying to get it right. I'm trying to make sure the boys are getting it right. I mean, I can't tell you how many times Jesse made a fool of himself and embarrassed me, or Caleb or Isaiah or anybody else has embarrassed me, and I'm all caught up in the moment because it's got to be perfect, because after all, I'm one of those guys where it has to be perfect. If it's not perfect, then by gosh, we're scratching the whole thing. I got that from mom and dad, and unfortunately, my sons have had to live under this thing.
Well, that's okay. The holy light from God is behind you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. So the curtain, the parachet is parting, and never mind. So
Oh, going there, are we?
I know, lightning rod.
Sorry, couldn't resist. Couldn't
See,
resist.
this is the lightning rod, so I don't get struck dead. Um, but no, seriously, Aaron is under a great deal of pressure here. Not only that, his sons, which were trying to do the right thing, they weren't trying to be wrong. They weren't. They really didn't even understand what they did wrong. They were wrapped up in the moment. This is not a. This is hard to even classify as a sin, what Nadav and Abihu did. Any right man in this situation could hardly blame Nadav and Abihu, but Aaron, this is my first two. For me, this is Jesse and Joshua. They just got consumed, and I'm forbidden to mourn. And Moshe, my younger brother, my little brother, you dare come to me and tell me I did something wrong about the sin offering? You want to bicker and moan about how I did or did not eat the sin offering? My sons just died. How dare you? How dare you, Moses, come in here and tell me anything wrong? I can't even mourn for my sons at this moment. Are you serious? Jesse, what's going on?
Interestingly enough, Aaron actually handles it better than what you have just conveyed, but I'm pretty sure he's going through the same emotional turmoil. Because what transpires is after Nadav and Abihu, what Moses doesn't come to Aaron, but Moses comes to Aaron's remaining two sons and just gets upset, saying, "Why was the sin sacrifice not eaten?" Because as we know in the sacrificial system, and we've discussed it in one of our previous Torah portions, like 2 weeks ago, you have the whole burnt offering, you have the olah, and that is totally consumed. Nothing is left. You have the peace offering, which that is shared between the priests, God, and you. And then you have the sin offering, the chatat, which is not consumed by you. It is consumed by God and the priests. It is supposed to be eaten by the priests,
Okay, so
which
let's give everybody a frame of reference here. We're looking at Leviticus, Vayikra, chapter 10, verse 16, and Moses thoroughly investigated concerning the sin offering, the he-goat, and he saw that it had been burned up, totally consumed on the altar. So he was angry with Eleazar and Ithamar. These are number 3 and number 4 son of Aaron, Aaron's surviving sons. And it's interesting that the Torah even tells us Aaron's surviving sons. It's reminding us that his two sons have already been killed, and Moses is investigating the sin offering. He's going through. He's being a good leader. A good leader will go back through and make sure, okay, I told you to do this, and I'm going to check up and make sure you did it. And he's making sure we did everything right, because after all, 2 people have already died. Let's just make sure nobody else is going to die today, okay? Can we get this one right? And he's looking through, and he's looking, and did you guys eat the sin offering? because we're supposed to eat the sin offering. It's almost as though Moses is starting to get caught up in the mechanical of things. I want to be careful because I do not want to disparage Moshe in the slightest. But it's almost as though he's getting caught up in the mechanical. He's wanting to make sure we did this absolutely correctly because we don't want anything else to go wrong today. And then he says, why did you not eat the sin offering in the holy place? Most of us coming from Western America or Christianity or Greek thought or Roman thought would go, well, what's the big deal? Well, because it is a big deal. 2 people just died for not doing it the right way. The right way is you, the priest, have to eat part of the sin offering. Did you not eat the sin offering in the holy place? And what does he say? Because it is the Kodesh Kodeshim. It is the Holy of Holies. And he has given it to you to gain forgiveness of sin of the community. In other words, Moshe is tying this just as God tied it. You, the Cohen, must eat of the sin offering to complete the atonement of sin for the congregation. If you don't eat it, there's no forgiveness of sin. Just because it was sacrificed, that's great. But you have to eat it. You have to consume it. Just as the altar consumed it, you have to consume it now.
The priests consume it as a representation of God accepting the mistake that has been made and rewriting the boundaries.
Yeah, and I didn't want to derail you. I just want to make sure everybody understands. Here's the situation. Here's the context. And so Moshe's looking for it. He can't. All he sees is that sin offering was totally consumed on the altar, and now he's a little bit upset.
Yeah, very upset. And Aaron takes his stride in a very interesting fashion. And I'll read this, but to explain what I've learned, my train of thought on this one, I will have to delve a little bit into what you tried to explain 2 weeks ago about the sin offering and the whole burnt offering. And as it continues, Aaron does say, but today did they offer up their sin offering and their burnt offering before the Lord? But if tragic events like these had befallen me, and if I did eat the sin offering today, would it have pleased the Lord? And Moses understood then and there and let it slide. Now, why would that be?
No. I'm sorry. I got to stop you. He didn't say let it slide.
It pleased him.
It pleased Moshe.
Well, I say let it slide because
no, I get it, but I just want to be careful here for just a moment, because I want you to go back into this. Is Aaron? He's not saying my kids just died. Blah blah blah. He's not doing that. I mean, Aaron is trapped in a position that no man rightfully could be trapped in. He is the high priest, the Kohen Hagadol. This is a place he didn't ask for. He didn't say, oh, please pick me. Oh, but the blood of this goat or the blood of this man or the blood of anything says that I can do this. No. And his sons have just been consumed. And I find it odd, Jesse, I think you were hitting on it right there, is Aaron didn't retort in anger. Aaron didn't come back and say, hey, listen, I'm trying to think of the word in Spanish, molito, little Moses, my little brother, the little boy. Hey, you're younger than I. I'm the older brother. He didn't say shut up. I know what I'm doing. He wasn't consumed with pride. He didn't put himself in a position. Moshe, guess what? I'm the Goen Gadol. I'm the older brother. I'm whatever importance. He offered a very logical, perfect explanation.
And it was on the subject of Aaron's special position. If you can if you can help with my understanding, as you said, Aaron is in a very precarious position, in a position where for most of the things involving his life, he is a priest before he is a man. But this situation is one of those few times where the man trumps the priesthood. If you bear
In
with it.
what way? How do we reconcile this? Because his words, even in Hebrew, it's difficult. In English, Aaron says, "But today, did we not offer up the sin offering and the whole burnt offering before the Lord?" And this is one of those obvious answers is yes. So he's saying in the affirmative. But we did offer the sin offering and we did offer the burnt offering. I'm looking at chapter 10, verse 19. He says, "But we did offer the sin offering and we did offer the whole burnt, the olah offering. However, under the circumstances of what happened, if I had eaten the sin offering, would it have been accepted?" In English, we say pleasing, or would it have pleased the Lord? Would it have been accepting the Lord? And sometimes I think that our American and Christian approach and understanding is antithetical or goes against how to read this appropriately from a Middle Eastern or a Jewish understanding, because Aaron is saying, "I am a man." He's saying, as the high priest, I officiated and did these things, but as a man, I experienced great loss. Now, as a man or a high priest, how could I sit and consume for the Lord the sin offering under these circumstances?
It's almost as if he's allowing it to be burned up because it's his way of doing the sin offering for his sons. It's almost like that. There seems to be some kind of special connection here. It's not your normal situation, obviously. Huh? You're muted.
Well, there's even a little bit more to that. I would dare say it is a different subject of the matter, because as I have understood from certain teachings involving the whole burnt offering and the sin offering, the the sin offering is dealt with on the subject of breaking a boundary God had set. If the rule is don't cross this line, and you cross that line, the sin offering is there to rectify the problem, rectify the mistake. It is you saying, "I'm sorry I have crossed this line. Please forgive me. Let us put the boundaries back the way they were." But if you look at the whole burnt offering, it is a different respect and feeling towards God. In the sin offering, you're respecting God's boundaries. But in the whole burnt offering, you're in awe of God in the subject matter that there are no boundaries. If you bear with it for 2 seconds, it's the mindset of God had God had drawn up boundaries so that you feel like something is yours. But the burnt offering states the burnt offering is supposed to be for that feeling of you that nothing is yours. It all belongs to God. And so with
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, and I mean, where we get this idea from, or the picture of it, of what Jesse's saying, because Jesse's right on mark. He's hitting it, and I'm going to belabor this a little bit just to make sure that the 2.5 people that actually listening to 2.5 opinions are
Well, we
catching.
have 3.14 viewers.
Oh, 3.14. Okay, so then we've doubled our market and our
we've hit the pi value.
yeah. But it's one of those things that we tried to hit it last week. We tried to do it with Torah with friends, and even the week before is, I Frank, Jesse, and we really try to push people to understand. You've got to understand and know the offerings and sacrifices before you can even delve into the so-called New Testament, the Brit Hadashah. If you don't understand the sacrificial system, then you're going to be led astray with anything that's taught in the New Testament. And this is why Jews have a lot of problems with the way Christians teach the New Testament, is because it makes no sense to a Jewish mindset that knows the sacrificial system that anything that's taught from Christianity about Jesus or anything else of being a sacrifice. And so we were looking through the sacrifices last week, and we saw that there is a olah, the whole burnt offering. There is a shlemim, actually I should say shlemim, peace offering, olah, whole burnt offering, chatat, sin. 1 out of 3 deals with sin. 2/3 of the categories of offerings are free will. You're just doing this because you want to do this. Shlemim, peace, it brings wholeness between you and I. We all sit down and we eat of this together. Olah is, I am in total awe of you, God. There is nothing that I have that you didn't provide. But this little bit, I poured my heart and my soul into this thing I think I own. But because I'm in awe of you, I'm going to offer it to you. And then the sin offering, the chatat. The chatat is, I crossed the line. I didn't respect you enough. I didn't understand. I didn't know. I lost my mind for a moment. I was drunk. Whatever your excuse is. I crossed the line. I encroached. I failed to pay respect. So let me heal that gap. Let me fill that gap that I crossed. That's the chatat, the sin offering. Let me fill that gap so that we can continue on with our relationship. The olah. We get a picture of the olah with the akida.
With the binding of Isaac.
With the binding of Isaac. The olah. God, this is my son. My only son. The son that I love. Nothing else in this world can I claim as mine. Nothing else in this world do I desire more. Nothing else. There is nothing else in this physical existence that says that I was here. But I offer this. Whatever it may be. There's a story of and I'm forgetting which tribe. I want to say the Sioux Indian, of a Sioux Indian, could be a make-believe, made-up story, and he's going out and he's trying to reach the great spirit in the sky, and he's offering up. He's gone on a fast. He's done the things according to his tribe, and the last 3 things that he has, the most important things that provide him food, sustenance, and identity, are arrows. Now, if you don't understand, and most of us in today's society, we could not understand what it takes to make an arrow. and an arrow that flies straight and true in order to provide you food that allows you to continue to live. And these are his arrows he made. He chose the sticks. He punched out the flint to make the arrowhead. He carved the arrow. He captured the turkey or the chicken or the eagle or whatever it is to make the fleshings, the feathers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the feathers at the end. He's made this true. He spent time with this. He's invested. He's tied with these arrows. These are his 3 best arrows. These are the arrows where you're going to chase down that game come hell or high water to get these arrows back. And he fires these 3 into the sky and says, "Oh, great Spirit, I offer up to you all that I have." It's that idea with the binding, the Akida of Isaac. It's that idea of the whole burnt offering. I offer it up. I give it up to you. I'm in total awe of you. And here Aaron is saying, on your behalf, God, the sin offering was made. But at the same time, I have given up my pride, my first and second. I have made an olah as much as I have accepted the olah of the community. Is it proper for me to consume the sin offering on the day that I have offered up my olah in the form of my sons?
Everything that is mine.
Everything that is mine? Is it proper for me to sit in the place of God and consume the sin offering while I have offered up as a man the olah? And here is buried in, if you have an ear to hear and an eye to see, here is what's buried within this as to why Moshe was pleased with this answer. Is that, yes, you're a man in the office of the high priest, and which trumps, the high priest or the man?
And in this case, it was the man.
And Moshe was pleased with this. And this is the inner, if you're not delving into Torah, if you're not digging into this and seeing the nuances and the not just practical application, but the real life in your face, what would you do in this situation?
I'm pretty sure a lot of parents in this day and age would be very upset at God.
A lot of parents in this day and age would lose their freaking mind because they have no concept of what God does. And that's Frank's opinion.
And in this case, Aaron not only stayed quiet when his kids were consumed, but also at this one instance in time said to God, I am a man, I may have the position you have given me, but I am a man, and so since everything is offered up, what is mine? There is no boundary. What is mine?
Yeah, and I think you hit it right there. Where's the boundary? Is the boundaries are broken down, and I think if we understand the Torah completely, and we look at it and we address it appropriately, then maybe, and I'm giving credence that the letter to the Hebrews has some validity to it. I know Monte Judah said that Hebrews was wrong years ago, but if there's any validity to the letter to the Hebrews in the New Testament whatsoever, why the writer wanted to compare the Messiah or Jesus or Yeshua to Aaron as opposed to comparing him to Moshe. Has that never crossed any Christian's mind, any Messianic's mind? Why is the writer to the letter of Hebrews wanting to compare Yeshua to Aaron but not to Moshe? How come nobody asked that question? But let's move on. So he's comparing. Let's comparing him to Aaron, and here we have Aaron in the most critical point, and it's acceptable and it's appropriate that Aaron perform the duties as the high priest perfectly in the sight of the death of his sons. And he performed the duties of a father and a human perfectly, totally and acceptably when it came to performing the duties of the high priest, which is to eat the chatat, eat the sin offering. And he refused. Though this was a matter of contention, and I find it fascinating that the Torah even brings this up. No other book, no other religion, no other philosophy. I can't see Christianity, I can't see Islam, I can't see Buddhism dealing with this issue. But here the Torah brings it up. You're a man. You're human. How are you going to deal with the most perplexing, intriguing, convoluted idea whatsoever? You're standing on behalf of God, but you're still a man, and you have just offered up your Olah. Can you, on behalf of the nation, accept the sin? Wow. Oh, wow. I'm sorry. This one blows my mind. It blows me away. This just it's no wonder Hebrews has to compare Jesus with Aaron, because in this instance, I'm sorry, Christianity, Messianics, everybody else, and I'm not trying to be blasphemous. I don't want to come against Jesus in any way, but Jesus, you didn't have children. You don't know.
Okay, I can't hear you.
Yeah, and God muted.
Oh,
God,
you got really worked up, and God
I
muted
got,
you temporarily.
I hit the button. But
Ah,
Jesus, you didn't have children. You don't. You can't tell me that you experienced this in the flesh. To lose your firstborn and your secondborn on the day that God is showing himself and revealing himself, and you are the high priest. How do you deal with it? This is a convoluted, this is a crazy time for this man. Horrible. No other man, well, I don't know if no other man, I don't want to say no other man, but
no other man at that time has dealt with that situation like Aaron did.
I've never met or heard of anybody else that has had to deal with this situation. This is agonizing in the extreme. And Aaron comes out with flying colors and it's found. Okay, I'm sorry. Frank's telling me we got to shut up, so I'm shutting up. I'm out.
I'm sorry, but we're already at 7:00. So, real quick, the only thing I want to say is that there are comparisons here, according to Rashi, and some of the other, the old dead guys, the sages, of what each sacrifice means: the bull, the calf, the goat. Okay, and it all goes from the golden calf to. Okay, now I'm going blank. To Joseph, and they go back and forth. So anyway, Jesse, last words, real quick.
At this juncture in time, no last words, because I'm kind of I think I've hit my point on the head, and
Okay.
I've got nothing more.
Okay. All right. Tell Chris I didn't mean to cut him off. It's just we're over time. Sorry. So
And this is 2.5 Opinions. We thank you for joining us. Hope to see you guys next time. I'm Yishai.
I'm Frank, and not the Rebbe signed off. So
we will see you next time.
right. Shabbat shalom, Shavua tov, Laila tov, Lehi Throt. Take care.